Chapter 16. Tiffany. The next morning, Tiffany rehearsed what she was going to say as she pulled into the parking lot of the resort. Nothing sounded quite right, but she'd just have to go with what felt best. A simple, "I'm sorry, can we talk?" was what she had decided upon, and she just hoped that he would accept her apology and allow her to explain. Grabbing her bags for the day, she locked her car and headed for the maintenance room. It was empty when she glanced in, and she wondered where he had gone. Since she still had a little time before Lucas and the other kids showed up, she dropped her bags in the childcare room and decided to walk the main floor to see if she could find him. There was a chance he'd taken an early job and could be fixing one of the rooms, but she hoped she would run into him before she had to go back. He was not down any of the hallways or at the front desk. Tiffany was about to head back when she remembered the coffee bar. She was not a coffee drinker, but she knew Israel had some on occasion, though she didn't expect to find him there because of Sophia. Suddenly, the thought of Sophia made her pause. Had Sophia found out they broke up? If she had, would she be making her move on Israel now? If she was, would he accept? And if he did, what did that say about his feelings for her? The weight of the questions froze her feet for a moment, and she was no longer sure she wanted to check the coffee bar for him. What if she found him in there? How would she react? She shook her head to clear the thoughts. She was overreacting. It had only been 4 days since they broke up. There was no way he'd be dating anyone else already, especially not Sophia. She continued toward the door, convinced he would not be there either. But that thought died when the door opened before she got there, and Israel stepped out. She swallowed her disappointment, telling herself he could have just been in there for a coffee. It didn't have to mean anything more. She pasted a smile on her face as she approached him. "Oh, good. I found you. I've been looking all over for you."
"Here I am," he said, his voice hesitant.
"Yes, here you are." She hated that he sounded hesitant to talk to her, and even more that his eyes looked fearful, as if afraid she would wound him again. "Look, I wanted to apologize about the other day. I got some news that shook me up. I'd like to talk to you about it, but I also wanted to tell you that I'd love to go to the summer bash with you." She smiled hopefully at him, praying he would give her another chance. "If the offer still stands." The color drained from his face, and he glanced back at the coffee bar before looking back at her. A sick feeling erupted in Tiffany's stomach.
"I would love to talk with you," he said, "but I can't take you to the bash. Sophia heard that you said no, and she asked me to go with her this morning. I told her yes, but just as friends."
Friends. Right. Tiffany pursed her lips together. Sophia, the beautiful Latina who had been hounding Israel for weeks. She probably should have expected that Sophia would make a move as soon as Israel was free, but she hadn't expected that he would say yes. He'd assured her that Sophia's attention made him uneasy. "I see. Well, I hope you have fun, and never mind about the chat. It doesn't matter anymore."
"Tiffany," he called after her, "I didn't know you would change your mind."
Well, he was right about that. He'd certainly wasted no time in going after the girl he claimed he had no interest in. It had only been 4 days. How could he have changed his mind so quickly? But then, maybe he hadn't changed his mind. Maybe he'd liked Sophia the whole time and had been lying to Tiffany when he said he didn't. As a tear slid down her cheek and she wiped it away, she realized how unfair she was being. He hadn't asked Sophia out or proposed marriage. He'd simply agreed to a date with the girl, and he'd done it after Tiffany said no to him. Rationally, she knew he wasn't to blame, but she didn't feel like being rational right now. Being angry felt so much better. though she wasn't sure if she was more angry at Israel or at herself. Once again, her lack of faith in people had made everything worse. Would she ever learn? When she reached the child care room, she splashed cold water on her face to reduce the puffiness she knew was coming, and then dried it off. There was no way she could pull off her cheerful self today, but perhaps she could make a trade. Crossing to her desk, she looked at the roster for who was supposed to work the bash tomorrow night. She'd declined the offer originally, thinking she and Israel would be there together. So 2 of her other girls, Allison and Harper, had accepted. She knew Allison needed the money, but Harper was about to start her senior year of high school and would probably take the night off. Perhaps she could convince Harper to cover her shift today and take the shift of the bash tomorrow night. She doubted she would be in a much better mood, but at least working the bash would keep her busy with the kids and not allow her to drown herself with thoughts of Israel and Sophia together. She picked up the phone and dialed Harper's number. "Harper, it's Tiffany. How would you like tomorrow night off after all?"